Today I want to talk about archetypes, and particularly this trickster archetype, and diving into the pattern and behavior that's becoming increasingly common in spiritual communities and also in other sorts of communities where people identify with these archetypes without really knowing what that does, because to do so creates a lot of psychological skewing, and it then distorts the energy field of that person's life, their relationships, and the collective. And there's a lot of this skew and misunderstanding when it comes to archetypes and the archetypes at work now. And we're all sort of under the illusion of big trickster energy in the world. And that's why I find it really ironic but not so helpful or positive when there's people who come to identify with this trickster archetype as if it's innately a good thing and it's actually who they are. But we're not the archetypes. We all contain the archetypes, and these different archetypes show up in mythological stories around the world because they're innate to the human experience. It's not that we heard these stories and then we internalize them. It's that the same stories or similar stories emerged around the world in cultures that might not have had contact with each other, because these sorts of themes are innate parts of the human experience. And astrology points us to see that we all have every single one of the signs in our chart and all of the planets in our chart. And actually, over the course of our lives, we move through different time periods, or in Western astrology, we have progress charts that indicate changes in our nature and changes in what's taking place. So it's not as fixed as people think, but this really isn't as much about astrology as it is about the stories that we tell ourselves. So it's so common that there's these goddess circles, god circles. What people are forgetting is that the gods of old were very human and very mixed in their expression. They had darkness, they had jealousy, they had rage, they took revenge on one another, they deceived one another. And to simply say that we are the goddesses is deceiving ourselves. To recognize the divine spirit within us is different than telling the story that I am a god. We are all the one spirit, but to say I am a god is a bit deceitful and trickery in itself. And so what these archetypes are become their stories, right? They're stories that will play out, because the nature of consciousness is to play out whatever one believes to be true. And so if I have this deep belief and I hold it to be absolutely true that I am the hero of my own story, which is this sort of main character syndrome phenomena that unfortunately a lot of people have going on, and a lot of cultures have going on, like my country is the greatest, my religion is the greatest, my people are the greatest. So if I tell myself I'm the hero, all other parts of the hero story have to be mapped in my psyche. So I will look towards the outer world and find the villain in my story. I'll find the victims in my story. I'll find my supporters in the story. And all of a sudden, I'm projecting this archetypal play onto the outer world, whereas all of those other people have those same hero archetypes within them as well. And little beknownst to us, in so many of these dramas we play out, the villain in our story thinks that they are the hero. And this is the hidden story behind so many of the world's conflicts at this time. And so this goes true with all of the archetypal stories. When we identify with them, we have to energetically imprint the world around us with the other components in that story. And there's this talk about, oh, you're attracting this and that person into your life. And it's not as simple as like, well, I just out of nowhere poofed into reality this same kind of person again. A lot of how these dynamics play out is that at a subconscious level, the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and who other people are based upon our story pulls from the other people different behaviors. The way that we subconsciously engage with others, the way that we talk about ourselves around others, influences in them ways unbeknownst to us that makes them treat us a certain way. And all of a sudden those same archetypal stories play out with people that we never would have imagined to be that way. That's why somebody with really strong victim stories can find that they become, in their mind, victimized by somebody who seems like the nicest person anyone knows. It's because we can summon energies from within other people through our own internal stories that sometimes we didn't even know are playing out. So let's move to this trickster archetype, because this is so misunderstood. It seems now that there's a lot of people who want to embody this trickster, who seek some sort of praise as this figure, because in a way the trickster is necessary. The trickster is bringing a transformation to stagnant and distorted energies that aren't really working anymore. And from chaos, eventually this goes into order again, but the trickster is more connected with the movement from order into chaos. And our world is sort of in this phase, right? That's why I say we're at, there's a big collective trickster archetype at work. And yet, this trickster energy has been associated with heroism in some cultures, yet even in many of these myths, the trickster is having a lot of negative qualities and hurts people along the way. And the biggest example I think of is Prometheus, that Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give it to humanity. He's a real hero, but Prometheus was then destined to forever carry the same rock up the same hill and have an eagle eat out his liver, right? If I'm remembering that correctly. So even when we betray the authority figures in a way that is with trickery, there's punishment for it. Whereas there are ways to subvert oppression and the negative energies in the world that don't lead to that sort of a punishment. I'm going to keep going. For those on TikTok, you might want to hop over to my Instagram, YouTube, even Facebook. I think I'll put this one on to finish this video. So the trickster is associated with deceit, punishment, and there's a lot of pain that the trickster archetype can cause. Yet the trickster archetype can also bring about a certain level of freedom. Energetically, or astrologically rather, Mercury is a planet connected with this trickster energy. You could also say that Rahu the north node of the moon is connected with this trickster energy. Both those planets have an association with the signs of Gemini and Virgo, which are connected with the phase of the year where the light is moving towards darkness. So there's a connection with that planet, both of those planets, those signs, with moving from the light into the darkness. But the whole cycle is the constant perpetual motion of lightness to dark to light to dark again. And so this trickster energy and all of these archetypes and all of these phases of the cycle are absolutely necessary, but none of them are complete without each other. And they need the complete story of the zodiac, or of all of the characters in the story, to be seen on equal grounds, to really be whole and to be healthy. And so we need to recognize that all of these different archetypes are alive within us, and none of them are truly the essence of who we are, though all of them can serve us along our journey. And even astrology can become a pitfall for some people if they don't learn the complete picture. Astrology points us to seeing which archetypes might be the strongest in us. Like with a very strong Saturn position, I might be more of a loner. With a very strong Venus position, might be more of an artist, of a creator, of a sort of public figure or pop star energy, something like that. Venus can manifest in so many ways. All of the planets can. And the specific placement of it shows how the energy is showing up. But again, all of the planets are just one planet in the chart. We all have all of the signs in the chart, and we go through phases of our life, such as the dasha system in Vedic astrology that points out the different phases and time periods, or the progressed chart that shows how the chart changes in the Western system. So it's about inviting us to acknowledge all of the archetypes alive within us. And that's so important in the especially for the more heterosexual or non-queer people, to come to learn how to connect with what Carl Jung called the anima and the animus, the female part of the male psyche and the male part of the female psyche, as that energy in the shadow is something that needs to be embraced and connected with as a part of oneself. And until that process takes place, there's a lot of projection. And that is one benefit of being queer, is that we're naturally, many of us are, at least most I would say, more connected with those parts of ourselves, the yin and the yang, the anima and the animus, and so on and so forth. So I'll leave it there for now with some things for you to think about, and understanding again that power of projection that we have when we identify with stories, that if we are this character in the story, we have to cast other people in the other roles. And as we cast a constellation, those people will inevitably end up behaving in just the role that we cast them in. And if we don't recognize that we're casting them in that role, then we're unconscious to the way that we're setting up certain stories for ourselves. And that's taking place on personal and collective levels. And not only that, but these archetypal stories limit who we are. And if we keep ourselves stuck in them without recognizing the casting of roles that we and others are doing, we don't free ourselves to go beyond the archetypal realm to the non-dual realm of source, the unconditional love realm that's beyond all of this, the essence of the heart that can observe and contain all of these archetypes without getting stuck on a single one of them. because that's the true you, that's the true self, and that's the energy that we all must seek to connect with and identify with more than the personhood. And that doesn't mean to deny the personhood and be like, I am not human, I'm not my body, I'm not this, I'm not that, with absolute conviction and certainty, because that's also unhealthy. It means to know that we're more than the roles that we are cast in. We're more than the archetypal stories that we feel most closely connected with. We're more than our hobbies, preferences, careers, relationships, and interests. Those things are all still relevant, but at our essence, we are the source. And that awareness and that witnessing consciousness that comes with that brings us to really go beyond and understand the role that our consciousness and our projections and our identities have in everything that we're doing, so that we can become self-aware and change those narratives to live a more fully embodied and joyous life. Thanks for bearing with me with the sound effects. Yeah, that's all. Love, blessings, and if you want to dive deeper, check out the channeling sessions I do with the Pleiadian Council and the astrology posts that I share, and we can dive deeper and explore your stories and deconstruct them in one-to-one channeling, astrology, or just counseling sessions where this wisdom can be applied, and we can open to your own inner energies and uncover what's there. It's the work I love doing most, so I look forward to contacting you and connecting with you, and have a really beautiful and brilliant day, everybody.